Hey everyone. So, during my last live stream, I promised to do the next installment of Enforcer Hall of Fame. So, today we are inducting a new member, a new enforcer into the Enforcers Hall of Fame. And today it's a guy who I remember from the towards the end of his career, but he was definitely not the biggest guy, but he had a ton of heart. He was willing to fight anybody. He fought a lot, and he was really one of the best enforcers of the 90s and early 2000s, despite not being that big. But just his willingness to fight and the ferocity in which he fought was really unmatched. So the next inductee into the Enforcer Hall of Fame, and I knew this was coming for a while, is Mr. Tie Domi. Um, Spent most of his career as a Toronto Maple Leaf. He's certainly most well known for his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Um, he was just an incredibly spirited and energetic guy. He could be dirty at times. A lot of people don't like Ty Domi. They think he was a cheap, dirty player, and he certainly was known to throw sucker punches here or there. And obviously, his elbow on Scott Niedermayer, I believe that was in 2001. I believe it was certainly pretty well documented. But love him or hate him, he is without a doubt one of the best enforcers in NHL history. And as you can see, he was only 5'10", 207 pounds, which is not very big for a guy who had to fight guys, consistently who were, 6'3", 230. So he was always kind of undersized, always an underdog, but man, could he throw punches, and he was not afraid of anybody. Um, Domi played a long time in the NHL. He played over 1,000 games. He played 1,020. He scored 104 goals and 141 assists in that time for 245 points. So obviously not great point totals, but he was an enforcer, and that was not his main job. His main job was to fight and rack up the penalty minutes, and boy, did he do that. Um, in those 1,020 games, he racked up 3,515 penalty minutes. That's a that's a boatload of penalty minutes. He had 274 career fights, not including preseason, just regular season and postseason. And the most fights he ever had in a season, he did twice, which is 26, which he did in 1996-97, and then in 97-98 the next year. So those were back-to-back years of 26 fights, and that's the most he ever had in a year. Both were seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The most points he ever had in a season came in 96-97, which is one of his top fight years. He had 28 points that year, 11 goals, 17 assists, and that was his best year offensively. The most penalty minutes he ever had in a season came in 97-98, the year after his best point season, where he had 365 penalty minutes. And he was consistently over the 200 mark. He went over the 300 mark on a couple of occasions, but 365 is the most ever that he ever had in one year. Like I said, he's most known for his time at the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's where he played the longest. He broke in with Toronto in 1990. 89-90, he played 2 games with the Maple Leafs, and he had 42 penalty minutes in those 2 games. So those weren't just fights. There were obviously misconducts involved there as well. But that's a lot of penalty minutes for just 2 games. A lot of guys don't get 42 in a whole season. So he broke in with Toronto, and then he went back to Toronto in 1994 and played the rest of his career there through 2006 as a Toronto Maple Leaf, and that's where he is most well known, most beloved, and most remembered for. He did have 2 other stops along the way, though. He played in Winnipeg. First, he played with the Rangers from 1990 to 1992, and then he played with Winnipeg from 1992 to 1994. But both of those were short stops, and he certainly fought plenty of times for both of those teams. But when you think Tie Domi, you think Toronto Maple Leafs. Um, so yeah, I remember him towards the end of his career, but he was certainly winding down by 2006, 2004, 5, around there. He was starting to get a little bit older and had been around for a long time. So he wasn't, in his heyday when I got to see him play. But man, in the late '90s, when Ty Domi was, at the top of his enforcer game, he was something else. And again, not a very big guy, but a ton of heart and willing to take on anybody, no matter how big or how tough they were. And he is without a doubt one of the best enforcers in NHL history. Whether you love him or hate him, he could throw with anybody, and he threw down a lot. 274 fights is a lot of fights for an NHL player. So Ty Domi is now in my Enforcers Hall of Fame, and he is certainly deserving and one of the best enforcers of all time. So, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com, all those links in the description below. Keep spreading the word about this channel. It continues to grow, and I thank you all very much for that. Let's keep it growing. Thank you all for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.